Welcome to Sports Talk Live Plus here. I'm Sports Director John Scott, joined as always by our insider Vic Carucci. Bills 3-0 and welcoming the 0-3 Saints to town Sunday at 1 o'clock. Vic, some people may be concerned. Trap game and potentially here. I'm not too concerned.
I'm not concerned at all. I know, and it's not because of their overwhelming favorite status. This isn't the kind of game the Bills generally find a way to lose, because you'd have to do that. You'd have to find a virtual way to lose, work at it. And I don't see that with Sean McDermott and his coaching staff. I think they get these guys ready, and I think they stave off these kind of traps, if you will.
Jonathan DaCosta, who wasn't even here in Buffalo, well beyond his time remembering this football team and covering them, reminding us before he went on that Deion Dawkins saying, hey, the last time that the Saints came to Orchard Park, they put a whooping nearly 300 yards rushing. It's kind of wild to think back to that era in the beginning of Sean McDermott with this football team. And
it was a physical pounding. I'm also going to go on a limb and say that was not the same kind of Saints team that we see playing now. A younger Alvin Kamara, a better offensive line, a team built for power, and oh, by the way, coached by Sean Payton. Pretty good Hall of Fame bound head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Vic and I are going to get into this matchup ourselves a little bit. Then later we're going to have a Saints beat writer, Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com, to bring perspective from the New Orleans side of things. At the end, we're going to talk about the big game between the Ravens and the Chiefs and maybe what's the best outcome for the Bills in that one. But let's start with the injury report from today. No Matt Milano, Ed Oliver, or Spencer Brown at practice for a second straight day. Oliver's been out the last 2 games. Milano missing just 1 so far. Brown's calf injury popping up in that win over Miami. We did see Ed Oliver today. I got some video. You could see it on social media. Just really watching defensive line drills, and that's what we're going to kind of leave it at here. What do you think of the injury report right now?
Look, it would be foolish to say missing 3 starters, 3 key guys, is nothing to worry about or to just dismiss as just again frivolous. It's not frivolous, but for the opponent and for the circumstances, I look at it this way. I'm not saying for sure. I know it's a bit of load management thought on the part of the Bills, but if you're looking at this game, you saw this game and you knew pretty much what you were coming up against, you could afford to give those guys, at least the 2 who weren't now. Brown popped up from an injury in the Miami game, but in terms of Oliver and Milano, give them a little more time to heal and rest. And, Brown, again, you should be able to overcome it from a depth standpoint against this team.
Yeah, if you usually miss the first 2 days of practice, especially coming off of missing games previously, you're all but certainly not going to play on Sunday. And to your point, I don't think there's even a need to push it here. Looking a little farther ahead, though, Max Hairston eligible to come off injured reserve next week. And here's some video I got today of him ramping things up. Sean McDermott really emphasizing yesterday, hey, let's temper expectations, manage them in terms of when he's going to come back, what he's going to look like when he comes back, though. What do you see here, and how does it impact your idea on Hairston's timeline?
Yeah, well, when you talk about Max Hairston, you have to continue to realize he is a rookie, and he was a rookie who, before that injury, wasn't looking like a rookie ready to start, at least in my view. I thought he had a ways to go. And it felt all along like Tre'Davious White was going to be the answer. Now we know his story, being injured with a groin injury, missing that first game. But in terms of the situation at corner, of course the knee-jerk response is as rough at times as things look on the back end of this defense. How could this guy be any worse, and could this guy be better? Well, again, take a look at the brace. Take a look at the process that he needs to go through, not just physically to come back, but mentally, John. And I think optimizing his chance to go in there and represent himself well and help this team, I think is probably going to need some more time.
I know he's a first-round pick, and I know there's definitely scars from the fan base because of what happened with the last first-round pick at cornerback that they had. But there's no need to rush it. Is Tre'Davious White the All-Pro? No, but we didn't expect him to be. He is more than sufficient as a quote-unquote placeholder for the remainder of the season here. And it's not just the physical side, as you said. He has to learn the playbook. He has to get comfortable in the scheme. And going up against SEC talent at Kentucky is a whole different world than what he's going to deal with middle of the season as a rookie.
And there's something else to incorporate into this discussion about any DB, and it's the pass rush. It's the expectation that those young people who are up front, the Deion Walkers, the TJ Sanders, the group as a whole, and getting an Ed Oliver back healthy, and we'll see what happens with Milano, but at least in terms of the front line people on the, I'm talking about D-line types, that to me is going to play right into how this secondary should be able to have some room for, I don't want to say mistakes, but at least get some cooperative help there, get some collaborative, complementary help. And you hear Sean say complementary football. I believe he says it in his sleep. And he's talking about that too.
Yeah, and also there is a corresponding roster move. I'm not saying that Jamarcus Ingram or someone they're going to really hold off a first-round pick to put back on the roster. But moves have to be made here, and it's not just with what happens with Hairston. It's obviously Matt Prater, when Tyler Bass is eligible to come back, as well as the two guys coming off suspension. All right, now we can get to the Saints here. Let's start at quarterback here. Spencer Rattler is a guy who was a fifth-round pick just last year. Second most completions on the third most pass attempts in all of football here, 67% completion. You kind of look at the stats and say, not that bad, but it's not that good either.
It's not that good. And look, this was a team left in a quandary at quarterback, right? They were, with Derek Carr's retirement. I don't know if that was really even going to play out regardless of his decision, or his health was what he said drove that move to step away from the game. But I think he felt with new coach Kellen Moore, new operation there, that he wasn't part of that. That isn't who brought him in to be the guy. And obviously he got that clue. Rattler is at best a stopgap, and not a great one at that, but I don't know what their alternatives are at this point.
Yeah, he is though, Vic. It is nice for him. It could be worse. He's surrounded with some pretty talented, at least names, at the skill position level, and that begins with Alvin Kamara. Still, as he's approaching, I think it is 30, one of the better dual threat running backs in all of football. You could see the rushing totals there, but just 3.7 yards per carry. That might be as much a product of the poor offensive line as it is the type of runner Kamara is. And you see 9 catches for 47 yards here on 10 targets for him. We've seen the Bills go up against dual threat guys. Breece Hall, they were able to maintain. Devon Achane, he didn't get a lot of yards, but man, was Miami feeding him. It's another week where the Bills are going to have to deal with the guy running the football and being involved in the pass game.
And there's no doubt that Kellen Moore, that the offensive staff of the Saints have a good handle from video study of Achane, of Breece Hall, of how the running backs this team has faced so far, how they've had their success. Now, if this were Kamara circa, 6 years ago, whatever it was when he was last in Orchard Park with the Saints, I think he'd still be running. I mean, it was horrible. It was a dominant performance. This is a far different situation, I believe. I don't think we see that guy. I do think, though, that Kellen Moore is more of a technical sort of offensive nerd guy than he is probably a head coach at this stage. You don't get the sense of true embodiment of leadership from him, from what I'm told from folks down in New Orleans. They see more of a guy who loves the X's and O's and just loves to believe that his veterans will kind of lead the way. Well, they can, but you better be a leader as well as a head coach.
As we said, Rattler, third most pass attempts in all football. He's fun a lot of those at the wide receiver position to Chris Olave, as well as to Rashid Shaheed here. Olave actually leading the NFL with 37 targets here, fourth in receptions with 23. When healthy, this guy is one of the better wide receivers in football, but boy, has he been off the field a lot dealing with concussions. Shaheed, I think, is a little underrated there, and I'll just throw it in there. Brandon Cooks is back with the Saints, though not someone who's making an impact at this point in his career.
No, and again, there should be some level of respect, but I think this takes us back to that conversation about how this Bills team can live with what it has on the back end of its defense and on the front end of its defense for the time being, because I don't see some serious threats from the weapons, even though, to your point, that Spencer Rattler is fortunate to have those pieces around him. I'm not seeing necessarily that they're going to do a lot of damage against the Bills.
Some of these numbers also, even though some of these guys are good players, inflated. The Saints have been chasing points the entire season here. Juwan Johnson at tight end here has ascended this season early into one of the more productive tight ends in all of football. 28 targets, 19 receptions. Those are both tied for 9th in all of football receivers, any pass catchers as well. Second most receptions of any tight end in the league. We've seen the Bills have issues with tight ends in the past, so I think this will be something to kind of circle and keep your eye on.
Yeah, I would like to see better work done, again, from safeties, from linebackers. We're back to the safety discussion, which was a thorny subject, has been a thorny subject, I'd say, from before this team's played a game that counted, and certainly went through the preseason that way or through training camp that way. And then in terms of the linebacker position, handling, not letting a tight end give you that much trouble or do that much damage. However, I don't necessarily see the game-breaking ability here from him. And two, I think the nature of this game, you said it, chasing points. And if they're chasing points, they've got to hit some of those home run plays, and I don't know that a lot of those, the tight end's going to be part of that, but I don't think he's going to be a primary part.
We'll quickly touch on the Saints defense here because they're 25th in the league, allowing 30 points a game here. You could see all of that there. Carl Granderson is what stood out to me, a guy tied for 5th in all of football with 3.5 sacks already. That name popping beyond some of the more veteran names that we're used to.
Yeah, for the Saints' sake, it's nice to see someone in Granderson step up the way he has. 3.5 sacks. He gets a lot of pressures from watching, the video when you're looking for small things that give that team any reason or for you to give any reason for this team to be a threat. He's one of them, but the top line, 30 points per game, 25th in the NFL, kind of says it all, John. That's just, I mean, you're looking, and look, I know the Bills came out of the gate allowing 40. So it's not like they can pound their chests and say their defense does a great lockdown job, but it has since. But in terms of the Saints and why they're in the hole they are and why they're kind of the dumpster fire they are, that's a big reason.
Yeah, no Chase Young in this one, it appears, as he's missed practice and hadn't played the entire season to this point as well. So that's our thoughts on the matchup between the Bills and the Saints. Coming up, we get perspective from the opponent's side of things. Vic's chat with Saints beat reporter Jeff Duncan next here on Sports Talk Live Plus. Welcome back here to Sports Talk Live Plus here on WGRZ Plus. Time to get perspective from the Saints side of things with the thoughts from NOLA.com beat reporter Jeff Duncan. He spoke with you, Vic.
Yeah, Jeff's covered this team for a long, long time, has seen them through their best and now their worst, and this is our chat. As you go through this long list of problems, what's your short list of reasons why this team got to this point?
Well, they made a lot of bad decisions to get here. As you know, Vic, these things don't happen overnight. There's kind of a gradual erosion and just a lot of big picture mistakes, starting with the quarterback decisions. This team, back when Dennis Allen was the head coach and Mickey Loomis, their first option was to go for Deshaun Watson. They were fortunate they lost out on the sweepstakes, and then they had to defer back to plan B, which was Jameis Winston. Then they turned to Derek Carr. That didn't work out. So really, they're back in that quarterback derby that they were in before landing on Drew Brees back in 2006, kind of the revolving door at the most important position in the game. They can't quite get it right. And I think that, along with some really subpar drafts from Jeff Ireland, who otherwise has been very good at personnel, that has really also kind of converged along with the quarterback situation to where this roster, frankly, is not very talented anymore. The most talented players on the team are in their mid-30s, guys like DeMario Davis and Cam Jordan, and Alvin Kamara just turned 30. So they don't have a lot of young talent to hang their hat on. And as you know, that's really the players in their mid to late 20s. That's the prime of the NFL, and Saints are lacking in those guys right now.
It seems like this team also commits a lot of penalties. I think tied for the league lead with 31 through these 3 games. Kellen Moore, first-year head coach. It doesn't reflect well on a head coach when that sort of bad discipline is there.
Yeah, one game is one thing, but we've now seen a 3-game trend. They've averaging over 10 penalties a game, a lot of pre-snap penalties. And he did say this week that he's going to try and dial back some of the complexity of their offense. I think they were trying to maybe do too much too soon. The one thing I would say is, this is kind of a veteran group on offense other than quarterback Spencer Rattler. They've got a lot of veteran guys there, so it's kind of surprising that they've had those issues up front. It's not one player either. It's almost every player on the offensive line has had at least 2 penalties. So it's definitely concerning because they're just not talented enough, Vic, to overcome those type of setbacks. You know how drives get killed by penalties, and they're just hemorrhaging mistakes across the board. Defense as well. Brian Brzee last week had a foolish personal foul penalty after a 3rd down stop that revived a drive by Seattle, and they were able to score a touchdown off it. Things like that, the lack of discipline, I think, is a big concern for this team early on, especially as Kellen Moore and his staff try and take over and establish an identity and a culture and a level of play, a standard of play that, frankly, right now is lacking.
If you're trying to see what the path to victory might be for a team that is such an overwhelming underdog, how would you place it based on what you've also seen of the Bills?
Well, I think they need Buffalo to have one of those games where they're looking ahead, and that happens sometimes in the NFL where, a team is guilty of a trap game where they're maybe not paying attention to the Saints, overlooking them, and then the Saints were to get fortunate, maybe get a lead. That's something that really has eluded them. They've fallen behind, and what it's like playing catch up in the NFL with a young quarterback. Defenses kind of dictate terms of the game. I know Sean Payton always told me his goal as a play caller was to get control of the game, right? To get maybe a 2-score lead. Then you're managing the clock and the lead. The Saints are always not in control, and so they're letting the other team control. If they could somehow get lucky, maybe get a special team score, a defensive turnover, something to get them a lead, maybe get a little belief and confidence and catch a flat Buffalo team, I think that's really the only prescription to get a win here. I mean, Buffalo hasn't lost, in over 2 years at home. It would take something fluky like that, I think, for this team to win because they don't match up really in any aspect personnel-wise with this team.
Yes, that was Jeff Duncan. And, things that stand out. One thing is not controlling the terms of the game, which he quoted Sean Payton on that. Mentions how Kellen Moore, who is really this offensive kind of nerd guy. I mean it as respectfully as I can, but I think it's showing you that his background as a coordinator is a little more than it is as a commander head coach guy. And then 31 penalties, leading the league in that, and the drive killers that those are.
Yeah, Dak Prescott and Justin Fields, I think, are more equipped to run offenses than Spencer Rattler, as we articulated there. So let's now turn our attention beyond the Bills and Saints. What's the rest of the division doing this weekend? And look at the biggest game of Week 4, Ravens at Chiefs. You're watching Sports Talk Live Plus.
Now back to Sports Talk Live Buffalo, sponsored by Solino Law.
Well, it's Sports Talk Live Plus, but hey, it's the same thing here. Time to look beyond the Bills and around the rest of the NFL this Week 4. Let's begin with what's on tap for the AFC East. And here is a look at the schedule here. Panthers at the Patriots, both of those teams 1 and 2. That's a Sunday 1 o'clock game. And then you have the battle of the winless teams rounding out the division. Jets at Dolphins, both of those 0 and 3. And boy, I'm sure the Monday Night Football crew is really thrilled to have that one on as part of the doubleheader. Yeah. Obviously, we kind of said going into the Jets game and the Miami game last week, they might be out of it as it is, but the loser of that one, you're done.
That's a knockout punch. Another division loss and from another withering team in that division. You're right. I think about the Patriots, who, maybe have a chance. I think the Panthers have shown some decent signs, some flashes here and there, Dave Canales' team. But Mike Vrabel, after a 5-turnover game, I don't know how practice was handled this week in Foxborough, Massachusetts, but you think about the hammer coming down of the Bill Belichick coach teams, you wonder how that's being handled by Vrabel.
Justin Fields, it was said by Aaron Glenn this week, when he is cleared from the concussion protocol, he will be this team's starter. So Tyrod Taylor going back to a place a lot of his career has been spent on the bench. And then there's the biggie, the game of the week, Ravens at the Chiefs, both teams entering 1-2 on the season. But Vic, I would say they are two completely different 1-2 teams.
No question. I think the Ravens are by far the better, more talented team from what I have seen of the Chiefs so far. And I think the Chiefs have O-line problems galore that I don't see fixed anytime soon. I think those will be a problem against this Ravens defensive front. And as you look at it, the Ravens, to me, are still going to be the team that the Bills will see down the line. I don't know where the Chiefs are headed, honestly. I think their schedule is the buzzsaw, and other than Patrick Mahomes and they get the two receivers back, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, I'm not seeing anything about the Chiefs that gives me confidence that they're going to bounce back into the race.
So as Bills fans are getting out of a potential win over the Saints, and they go into that 4:30 game, and it's who would you rather lose between the Ravens and the Chiefs, forecasting ahead to best pave things for the Bills grabbing the 1 seed?
Yeah, I think for the Bills' sake, they got to be rooting for the Chiefs. I mean, you want the stronger of the two teams to have another dent in it. It's already set up that if these teams are equal by any chance, that they're obviously the ones coming to Orchard Park in the postseason. But, that would be the better outcome. And then if the Ravens do what I would think is the expected and win, let's keep an eye on them, because I don't see them falling off a cliff. I can see the Chiefs falling off a cliff.
Essentially they're 2 fumbles away from being 3-0, essentially. Right. And it's from Derrick Henry, which this is just mind-blowing that a caliber of Derrick Henry, who's playing so well, 3 straight weeks, 3 straight games to start the season, he's had fumbles. It didn't kill him against the Browns. It did certainly against Detroit and Buffalo, 2 of the maybe other best teams in all of football here. And keep in mind, in the who do you want to win, who do you want to lose, the Bills still have the Chiefs on their schedule coming to Orchard Park later in the season. And I also just believe the AFC West will do enough of the deed to knock the Chiefs down more and more and more. Yeah. Then certainly you're going to count on the AFC North with Baltimore.
Our conversation about who is a threat to the Bills is going to shift. It's going to shift as time goes on from the AFC West. I think the Chargers are going to, there's something there, and Justin Herbert's playing well, finally getting indoctrinated into that Jim Harbaugh program. I see some better things ahead. I'm not willing to declare them yet as the be-all, end-all in that division, but they're trending that way.
And when you look at the South, it's the Colts, another team that's surprising. We've seen Daniel Jones. Is he the latest kind of reclamation project at quarterback around the league? We will see, but they currently are undefeated in first place as well. That'll do it for this edition of Sports Talk Live Plus. Bills Saints, 1 o'clock Sunday at Highmark Stadium with Vic Carucci. I'm John Scott. Have a good one.